Welcome back to Screen Preach for episode 44. We're going to talk about movies and TV today in the name of the Godfather, the Son of Odin, and the Holy Jedi, which is on the shirts that you can get if you go become a patron at patreon.com/preacher. Become a patron for $10, you get free merch whenever I get free merch. Well, I don't get free merch. You get free merch. I buy the merch, you get free merch. Well, it's not free, because you're paying $10 a month, but it's sort of free. You're paying a lot less than you would if you bought the shirt. Yeah. So what's going on, everybody? How we doing here? Yeah, I decided to do it a little earlier today. A little bit of daylight left outside. But yeah, I'm underway in a project I'm writing, and it's that time where you're banging your head against the wall, trying to write it the best possible way. Always interesting. Please don't clean your paws. Please don't clean your paws, please. She has this thing where she cleans her paws on my freshly cleaned blanket here. I mean, the blanket is technically on here for her, but I still would like to keep it nice for at least a day. And what happens is she licks her paws and makes marks on it that are there all week. So, we're already underway. There'll be like 20 of them by the end of the week. Alright, here's the deal. We're going to talk about something that I didn't plan on talking about yet. So what happened was, I wanted to talk about News of the World, the Tom Hanks movie, but I still can't quite access it. Don't know how to get it, don't know how to watch it. I mean, I could rent it, but I'm not renting it for $20 fucking dollars. Okay, it's ridiculous. And it's weird too, because the poster for it says Netflix, but it's not on Netflix. I can't find it on Netflix. I'm confused. Also, if it was Netflix, why would it be on Apple? There's nothing of Netflix's on Apple, ever, anywhere. Believe me, I wish there was, because you bet I'd be purchasing The Irishman. That always bothered me that I couldn't buy that movie. Yeah. So real quick, a couple things from throughout the week here that I'll just talk about. I mean, obviously still watching Marvel's Defenders series. And I wanted to just let everyone know real quick that Coming to America, the sequel, Coming to America, is actually officially out. For those of you who were fans of the first one, want to laugh, they brought everybody back. Everybody. And the sequel to Coming to America is officially out on Amazon Prime. Go check it out. Go watch it. I'm going to talk about it, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to do like talk about the original, talk about the sequel at the same time, kind of in the same episode. 2 movies, same episode. I'll do that, and that'll be fun, but I'll do that later on. I got a list of other things I want to get to. So like I said, I'm going to talk about The Highwaymen this week. Instead, it's a movie I started watching, didn't finish. Now I finished it. It's on Netflix. You can watch it, and that's this week. That's what we're going to talk about. A couple other things. It's crazy when I see people who are not hyped for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That is the one I was looking forward to more. WandaVision, I wasn't looking forward to nearly as much as Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Loki, I've been looking forward to even more because it looks like a hell of a ride. Like a fun fucking... I think anyone hating on Falcon and Winter Soldier, they just want all the multiverse and cool space stuff. But the MCU is great because it has all these little cornerstones. This is the realism. This is the realistic, earthbound cornerstone of the MCU. This is where all the grounded characters come into play in a big way. That's why the Captain America movies were so great, and that's why Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to be great. We're continuing on with what Cap gave us, but now the front man is Sam Wilson, and with Bucky alongside him for this new and interesting partnership between the two characters and dealing with, like, grounded conflicts, like Earth shit, like not cosmic, not multiverse, and that's what makes it great. The realism of it. We'll be able to connect to a lot of human elements here. Not that we don't. WandaVision exceeded my expectations, and I think a lot of people's. But I'm just saying in general, like in terms of tone and genre and whatnot, Falcon and Winter Soldier is more realistic. As much as anything can be realistic in superhero cinema. Um, but it's just crazy to me. Like I'm looking on Instagram at some of these content creators, these film centered pages and whatnot. Some of them are not looking forward to it. Like they're upset that we have to follow up WandaVision with it or something. It's like, what, dude? Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Whatever, dude. That's 2 weeks, people. That is in 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm so hyped for that. So hyped. Rewatched Mank too. That was fun to talk about. It's a great movie. I'm going to change my rating of it probably to like an 8.6 or something. It's great. I was curious if like they actually filmed on celluloid because it looked like it was filmed on celluloid, so I was curious about it, and they didn't. So everything that you saw that looked like celluloid, it was all post. It was effects and whatnot. I guess David Fincher, it didn't work for his workflow didn't account for trying to actually shoot it on celluloid. That would have added another element to that movie, that for sure. Anyway, you know what we're here for, first and foremost. So let's talk about the finale. WandaVision, Episode 9, series finale. That's right, series finale. It's it. No more seasons. It was a singular story about Wanda and Vision, but the story continues after this. A lot of setting up for future storytelling, storylines. If they do come back, it'll probably be like maybe it could be a WandaVision, maybe it could be a movie about Wanda, like her own solo movie, with a subtitle and everything. Or if it's a TV series again, it might be titled something different. I mean, there were rumors about Falcon and Winter Soldier coming back after the first season, but with a different title. Or something like that was a while ago, but it's different the way Marvel does it. It's not going to be like, I mean, some of the series will have second seasons. Loki has a second season, right, coming. And it looks like Falcon and Winter Soldier might as well. But WandaVision was always intended to just be a one-and-done thing and to kind of build into some more stuff. There's more. I mean, the story of Wanda apparently gets fleshed out even more in Doctor Strange 2. She's in that film in a big way. And now the question is that the next time we see Agatha Harkness? So let's talk about the things that really stood out most. Did they answer a lot of our questions? Yeah, they did, actually, but they also left a lot of lingering questions, because that's Marvel, right? I'm always amazed at Marvel's ability to build the story of this whole saga very slowly. Very slowly, hinting to things subtly. Very subtly, not like right in your face with shit. We expected just like Doctor Strange to pop in, or the Pietro to be the actual Pietro from the X-Men movies, stuff like that. We just but it's all little stuff to hint and build slowly to things, and that is what makes them so great. So, did they answer the Pietro question? Is the first thing I'll talk about, I guess. Yeah, they did, and he was just a fake out. He is not Pietro in any form. He is just another resident of Westview that Agatha took control of and used to fuck with Wanda and to fuck with us as fans. But here is my take on that whole thing. They actually did imply to us what their approach is for the X-Men by doing what they did. By faking us out, it tells us that their approach to the X-Men characters is very original. The reason they did what they did here is because it was a chance to play with a character that they didn't get to play with as much, because they killed the character off in his debut, right? Quicksilver was killed off right away. They haven't. It's like kids playing with their favorite toys. Feige and the gang, they wanted to play with Quicksilver a little bit more, and they decided to let's pull in Pietro from the X-Men, from the Fox films, to imply what we're going to do with our characters. we are it's implying what their approach is, and it's that they're not going to pull from the Fox films and just bring those characters in like that. That's what them doing this told us. They're not gonna pull from the Fox universe and just like give us those characters, but it tells us too that they could play with us a little bit, and not just with the X-Men characters, with Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man characters. You know, just like throw them in like subtly or quickly or whatever, and use them a little bit, but not in big and effective ways. Not solid, concrete characters with huge arcs and stuff like that. That those kind of that approach to those characters is going to be reserved for the original characters that they create and work with and take and give us from scratch. So like when we get Wolverine, Magneto, Professor X, you know, they will be original. They will be casted anew. You know, it will not be Hugh Jackman or Patrick Stewart. But that does not mean that those actors can't pop in as those characters for fun. And that's what this was. Having a little fun with bringing Pietro from the Fox, and it was just like to play around, and they played with us, definitely played with us, and made us think, right, and made us hope, and then and then made us very disappointed, but for fun. It's all in good fun. I don't think it was in bad taste. I think it didn't like totally bum me out, you know. It was funny, too, the way that we learn who he really is. His name is Ralph Boner. Your name is Ralph Boner? With that being said, who knows? Monica asks him, your name is Ralph Boner, and all he does is kind of just go, Ralph Boner. And that's it. Like, we don't see him, like, who knows, man? Maybe he's still, and it could be Pietro, who the fuck knows, man? It still wasn't totally, they didn't give us a concrete answer on that. Just like they didn't give us a concrete answer on a lot of other things. For instance, we got 2 post-credit scenes. I know I'm jumping to the end here. But, I mean, that's my whole thing on this episode. It was thrilling because it was every bit an MCU climax that you would want. A face-off hero versus villain, right? Wanda fighting Agatha, and you got Vision fighting White Vision, and the way that whole battle comes to a peak between the Visions was very, very impactful, with another great bit of writing from the Marvel writers. I wish I could, I want to write like that. Like, when they pull in a metaphor, and it's like, holy shit, you know? That's another big question, right? This thrilling MCU climax that we get ends in heartbreak. It was also heartbreaking, and it leaves a lot of questions. But overall, it was a big tease, this episode, for what's coming still. Most of all, though, it was an arc for Wanda in a big way. You know, watching her evolve this season into the powerhouse Scarlet Witch from the comics. That's most of all what this was, right? But also her healing from her grief and her past and everything. And she does. She does officially do that, I think, in this finale. She heals. She lets go of her pain in a lot of ways. And has evolved into something more. And she has to learn how to control this power that she now learned is more powerful than she ever realized. Agatha, yeah, some people are complaining because Agatha just turned out to be one-dimensional, like another one-dimensional Marvel villain, which is something Marvel has been doing better with, and then they go ahead and pull one of these on us again. But I don't know that you can call her so much one-dimensional just because of how much time we spend with her. It's a little different in a TV series. I think just the way that we learn about who she is and what she wants, the way that it was done, the approach to Agatha as a character, made it feel less one-dimensional than those movie villains. It was easier to swallow. There was a one-dimensionality, of course, but it was easier to swallow. I'll say that. And the fact that she can be fleshed out because she's not dead. Like, a lot of the villains, they die. Sometimes they're not really dead, but like they're beaten in a bigger way than Agatha was, right? They're really beaten by the hero, and that's it, right? Like Caecilius is a good example from Doctor Strange. He's killed, or he's done, and he was completely just a super boring villain, one dimensional, just nothing to work with, and then he's killed, and then that's it. But Agatha she lives on in a big way. She's going to play a role in things still. She's going to be a presence. So there is opportunity to flesh her out even more, and for her to evolve as a character. That's the best thing about. I think even this saga is just, it seems to be, it's the scale of it is something to marvel at. No pun intended. Because, I mean, the amount of projects being released this year, and then it seems to be the norm now going forward, the amount of projects a year just tells you how big the story is. This saga will be bigger than the Infinity Saga. And so the chance for characters to really grow the possibilities are endless. And we look at Loki in the Infinity Saga and the way he had an arc like that, and the fact that he's still around in another form and in another dimension allows for him to again go through change, maybe even in a different way than he did in the Infinity Saga. Like, he could still turn into a hero, but in a different way than he did in the Infinity Saga. So, like, just that is amazing to play with. And so Agatha could even become a hero, more of a hero than she is, and that involves depth and change for the character, and that will save her one-dimensionality in this, right? Another big question was about White Vision, and the fact that he kind of regains his memories, and then flies off and we don't see him again. I'm curious if it just, it implies that he's most likely going to come back. The Vision we knew could come back, but it adds another layer of depth to Vision, and having to now grapple with these memories that he has no emotional connection to, because he didn't technically, he's disconnected from them because of his death. So he has to, like, almost rekindle those emotions. It's why he didn't even stick around and help Wanda, I guess. But Vision 2, the Vision that we've known this whole season here, this series, I think him and the kids, Billy and Tommy, that was the biggest thing they leave us with, cliffhanger-y kind of way, was, can they come back? I'm going to predict they can. And that might be the final piece to how Vision comes back entirely. Maybe it's more of a merging, which I kind of thought was going to happen in the episode. I'm like, oh, are they going to kind of like, and then Vision's back? Like, I was almost kind of waiting for that to happen. Like the hex shrinks and everything goes back to normal and Billy and Tommy are gone. But when it gets to Vision and Wanda, like, Vision actually doesn't go away, and then, like, Wanda's surprised and like, oh my God, what, how? And, but that's not what happened, and that's not the approach to Vision. It's more layering than that. It's more going to be more fleshed out than that over a period of time with when more stories, when more movies and shows come out. We all we can do is wonder when White Vision will pop up again, right? But I think the possibility of him coming back is definitely more than it was before. And Billy and Tommy. Now, my big thing here with this is it's based on the post-credit scenes. First of all, the first post-credit scene is obvious. It's just setting up Captain Marvel 2. And possibly Secret Invasion further. Monica meets a Skrull. She's met Skrulls before as a kid. She met a Skrull, and they said they want to talk with her in space, and that's setting up Captain Marvel 2. She's a character in Captain Marvel 2. So that was obvious, but the last post-credit scene sets up more of Wanda's story going forward, Doctor Strange 2. Not that it implies how she ends up meeting up with Stephen Strange or anything, but just the fact that she's studying the Darkhold, right? The Darkhold is that book that we learn. That's what it is, and it's a pretty powerful book. It's similar to the book of Cagliostro, right? That Doctor Strange reads. It's it's all in the same realm. This stuff now. Wanda has become more connected to the Doctor Strange cornerstone of the MCU than she was before. That's what this series did a lot of too. It put her in that cornerstone, whereas before she was kind of in the Earth, more of the Earth bound cornerstone. Now she's more in the multiverse, Doctor Strange, magic, sorcery cornerstone. In that book, she's studying it, and we hear Billy and Tommy scream right before we cut to black. We hear, which tells me there's a chance it's the multiverse, right? That is the key to bringing her children back and to potentially bringing Vision back. And it's that maybe the Hex was tapping into multi-dimensional energy or something. And when they go away, do they go somewhere else? Like, we see that they fall apart like how Vision does when they're not in the Hex. They're gone. But where do they go? Is that what this implies? Is it that they're stuck in some dimensional plane somewhere and they need her to save them? That is kind of what the post-credit scene sort of implies. And yeah, I mean, WandaVision fully embraced her power. She became the Scarlet Witch, new suit and everything. I mean, it was, and the way she used Agatha's own trick against her, just really great. Really, really was. If fans were disappointed, I guess I can see why, but I just don't see how you can be totally disappointed when you know that there's so much more story left. It's not like anything that they get. It's not like it was meant to be a complete end, because it's not. There's the characters go on and the story goes on. So how can you really be totally? It's like, yeah, they left us hanging with stuff, but just understand that they will answer those questions you still have. So just enjoy the ride. It was a thrill. I guess that's it really with the recap here. I gave you my takes on some things. Is there anything? If I left anything out, I'll beat myself up over it afterwards. And I mean, I loved getting to see Billy and Tommy's powers a little more, and definitely Monica's powers a little more in this. That was an awesome little sequence, and I mean, what can we say about it? I know that there's probably something I'm missing, but whatever. Yeah, if you haven't watched it yet, go watch it. And now, if you didn't get around to WandaVision, you can binge the whole 9-episode series. And yeah, the story continues, guys. The story continues. The saga continues in 2 weeks. We're ready to go. Falcon and Winter Soldier is next. I will be doing recaps of it every week. It's 6 episodes. And yeah, let's see what we get. Looking forward to it. Let's do our news of the week, because there wasn't a lot of stuff, but there was some interesting stuff. I'll save the Marvel-related stuff for last, because I like to do best for last. Of course, we could segue from Marvel to Marvel, but let's just go in the order here. One of the most recent things I saw, literally today or yesterday, was that there's a new series in the works at Netflix called The Talisman, and it's based on a Stephen King book. Steven Spielberg and the Duffer Brothers, creators of Stranger Things, will be working on the series together. And that is a lot of hype to look forward to. What do we have? I don't know. I never got around to reading The Talisman, so I don't... Wow, watch. Hold on. I hope that Yeah, Talisman. Yeah, I was, for a second, I'm like, am I even saying the right title? I didn't read it, but maybe, for those of you who have, it's something to really look forward to, but I look forward to anything Stephen King related, and if it's got Spielberg and the Duffer Brothers working on it, it makes me even more curious about it. So, hyped for that. Here's the latest rumor in the Star Wars universe. Obi-Wan Kenobi, we know he has his own series coming out, That's another thing that's a one and done. That's one series, one and done. One season, one and done. But the latest rumor is that Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor, pops up in the Andor series. So a little cross-pollination. Obi-Wan Kenobi might be in the Cassian Andor series for a moment or two. Why? I don't know. What are the circumstances around it? I don't know. Is it even confirmed? No, it isn't. But it's fun to think about. What would his role in that series be? Probably small, I guess. New Star Trek movie in the works from one of the writers of Fear the Walking Dead. Star Trek is a universe I thoroughly enjoy as well. I will be getting around to watching some of the things I haven't yet, like some of the new TV series. But I'm also going to watch all the old original series too at some point. I love the trilogy that we have right now, and the fourth one's supposed to come out still. Movie trilogy, of course, the J.J. Abrams trilogy. But yeah, anything Star Trek I like to bring up too. So there's a new one in the works. So this is another movie separate from, I guess, so it's separate from the fourth one. But there's also been talk of Chris Hemsworth's George Kirk having a film. So I'm really, and then of course Tarantino's supposed to do a Star Trek movie. So I don't really know what that universe is also expanding a lot more than people realize. There's already 2 TV series out, Picard and Discovery, and then there's a third one coming out called Strange New Worlds on Paramount. I think it's all Paramount now too. Anything Star Trek is Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus just came out. You can stream 30 days free, and you can sign up monthly for it. I probably will. They don't have a lot right now, but they do have a show. I'm on the fence about it. Let's see what they get in. I mean, Paramount is the movies are probably endless. I mean, Paramount's that's gonna be good, I'm sure, at some point. SpongeBob SquarePants spin-off in the works, centered around Patrick. It's called The Patrick Star Show, and it's going to be at Nickelodeon. SpongeBob. Anyone who is a SpongeBob SquarePants fan will like this news. I am not a SpongeBob guy. I didn't grow up on it. I wasn't like a huge SpongeBob. I know that people are huge SpongeBob people. I wasn't. It wasn't one of the ones I watched. It just wasn't. Of course I watched it like here and there, but it wasn't one that I was. But I thought I'd bring it up anyway. Jodie Comer in talks to play Josephine in Ridley Scott's Napoleon movie, Kit Bag. That's interesting. I like anything drama related. I like anything Ridley Scott related. I like anything Jodie Comer related. There were a couple of interesting things going on with just regular films and TV shows and stuff. I'd like to bring it up. For instance, I talked about Guy Ritchie's next film, and this is Ridley Scott's next film. I mean, a Napoleon film. I heard something recently about Napoleon, about how he was basically the Hitler of the world before Hitler. Like, when people would say this person was so bad they were basically Hitler, before Hitler, that was Napoleon. Like, I guess apparently Napoleon was, because he was just terrible, but we don't even, like, bring it up now because of how bad Hitler was. Like, now our gauge for, like, who's the worst, it's Hitler. Whatever. A movie about Napoleon is interesting, and the fact that Ridley Scott's doing it is even more interesting. Tenet is going to be back in theaters for a little bit for all you New Yorkers who got 25% capacity. It is going to be open in New York. So if you didn't see it yet and you still want to, and you didn't get to see it in theaters, now you have a chance to see it in theaters again, so that's cool. Obi-Wan Kenobi series added an actress to the cast. It added another, so it's funny how Pedro Pascal plays our Mandalorian, and now the woman who played his lover in Game of Thrones, because they were both in Game of Thrones, that woman, that actress, from Game of Thrones, who played his lover when he was in Game of Thrones, is now in the Star Wars universe as well. She is joining the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. That is Indira Varma. She's joining the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. There are no details on who she is playing, but I like the casting. And finally, we'll talk about any Marvel news. The biggest Marvel news, of course, was set photos from Thor: Love and Thunder. And it showed a new reenactment scene. If you remember Ragnarok, there was a reenactment scene, like as a play that Loki put on, right? It was hilarious. And it had Liam Hemsworth, Chris's brother, playing Thor. It had Matt Damon playing Loki. It had Sam Neill playing Odin. It was hilarious. We have another one apparently in this one. I don't know who's putting it on this time. Part of me thinks it's Thor, though, because of how funny, just coming off of the, segueing off of how fucking goofy Thor was in Endgame as Fat Thor. Maybe he's the one who puts it on in this. There's another reenactment, and it looks funny. Matt Damon is back, Sam Neill's back, Liam Hemsworth is back, but also Melissa McCarthy is playing Hela in the reenactment. So this should be hilarious, all in all. And Ragnarok cracks me up. It really does. It's like the perfect film to like smoke a little weed to it. Like I was dying laughing at it when I rewatched it recently. It's so funny. It might be the funniest one of all the MCU films, and I'm so looking forward to Love and Thunder also making me laugh my ass off. So cool to see some set photos. There's movement. There have been other set photos too of Natalie Portman on set, and I'm totally psyched for that. It might be the one I'm most hyped for, honestly. It's so hard to pick, but it might be. That was the biggest news. That was biggest Marvel news. And yeah, that was the news this week. It wasn't a whole lot, but it was good. So we'll talk about our movie. And our movie, like I said this week, is The Highwaymen. Now, first thing I know about The Highwaymen is that it's on Netflix and you can watch it. It came out a couple years ago. I can't believe how long ago it came out. I remember it like it was yesterday, but it came out in 2019, and I never got around to. I guess it's as good a time as any to watch it and talk about it too. There's a lot of similarities with this to like what I'm writing now in terms of like tone and genre. Not so much not in terms of storyline, but like in terms of tone and genre. It's playing with a lot of the ideas of tone that I want to play with in mine. And it's like this idea of merging gangsterism and Western, like gangster and Western styles. That's kind of what this does, right? And the 1930s, that's an era of when, like, I think this was the 30s, right? I don't actually know if this might have been was this the 20s? 20s, 30s, whatever. We were transitioning out of, like, the old Wild West kind of days and into the more modernism, gangsterism, right? So that was something I liked about this that it played with. There was a great line by Woody Harrelson where he's like, after he beats up a guy, Clyde may be king, but I'm a Texas Ranger. Interestingly enough, this film has the kind of outlaw gangster genre merging I like. So 1930s, a time of organized crime, right? That was when the fucking mafia really formed, too, in the 30s. But also a time when outlaw gangs were still a thing, but dying out. So I guess Bonnie and Clyde and the Barrow Gang were the most famous, like, of a dying breed. Like, they were the last of, like, that outlaw, shoot-em-up kind of gang. And I don't want to say John Dillinger's gang was like that, because it wasn't. It was more like a gangster gang. It was more organized. There was bank robbery, right? This was just straight murder for the most part. This idea of putting gunfighters on the job of taking down, outlaw gangs in like a more modern era was the most interesting part about this for me. Okay. Right off the bat, the inciting action, meeting Frank, played by Kevin Costner, presenting him with his mission. An old school Western style Texas Ranger, right? A gunfighter whose career has passed, coming out of retirement for the biggest hunt of his life. What's more fun is, of course, the fact that it's true. A true story about extraordinary events. So I always liked stories like this, right? There's immediately a story when it's true. Frank is also the typical hero, refusing his call to action at first, right? And he's refusing it out of a promise he made to his wife. But the gunfighter within him wants to break loose again, right? It naturally can't help but pursue this. Old habits die hard. I like Hancock's films too. In general, I do like John Lee Hancock's films. I mean, the most recent one I watched was The Little Things. I talked about it a couple weeks ago. He did that. But he's also done kind of more obscure little stories, things about times or eras or events, but the things you don't think of. I mean, he did The Blind Side, right? That's like its own little story within a bigger, theme of and genre of football, sport, sports story. But like, I mean, he's done, and this too. Like, this is about the guys who took down Bonnie and Clyde instead of just being about Bonnie and Clyde. I like Hancock's films. Meant to, so I did. I meant to watch this in 2019. So I'm glad I got to it now. I like how there's a similar kind of feel to Unforgiven, too. A retired gunslinger who's lost a pep in his step, not the same man he was. That scene with him shooting the bottles is literally like taken straight from that movie, like from the Eastwood classic, Unforgiven. Like, it reminded me exactly of when he's practicing his shooting after not doing it for so many years. And what's funny was I knew this movie would have these kind of vibes before I even watched it. It's my sixth sense about movies, I guess, because I made the fun fact of this week about Unforgiven. So when we get to that in a second, and I ended up having similarities. I also I like how there's an emphasis on location. I think it's important for the plot too. This outlaw Wild West feel we want from the film is most emphasized in the southern western places Frank and Manny go. So there are many scenic shots that I think help this get across that mixed genre. My kind of story is one like this, with like ex-Texas Rangers going after gangsters. It's not something you normally see in a crime movie. It's either a Western or it's a gangster film. I like when those are merged. I feel like I've said that a lot. We can move on from that point, right? My problem, of course, is the one-dimensionality of Bonnie and Clyde themselves in this movie. That was kind of tough. They're antagonists, but they're also understandable. There's a relatability, I'm sure, to them that they don't touch on, I think, enough. They do try, but not enough. It would have given them more of a purpose in the story, I think, overall. A stronger purpose. Instead of just making them the bad guys that our good guys hunt. Because the story of Bonnie and Clyde was of divisiveness. It divided people. Because they were famous. Like, they were like... Natural Born Killers, the Tarantino-written Oliver Stone film, that was totally based on the story of Bonnie and Clyde, because it had those similar ideas in it, that they became famous, Mickey and Mallory, and that's what it's based on. Bonnie and Clyde, in reality, in true life, that was what happened. People loved them, their story, like they were famous, like people idolized them for some reason, but all they were doing, really, they were cold-hearted murderers. They were murdering people. I get it, though, who doesn't know about Bonnie and Clyde? Who doesn't know that story? It's the story about the guys who took them down, Frank and Manny. We don't know about that one. So they are the focus. We spend the most time with them, and for good reason. But I think playing with the divisiveness of Bonnie and Clyde would have, in my opinion, made it even more impactful as a whole. Instead, they are more of a mysterious, terrifying presence. They basically are presented as monsters that are being hunted by our good guys, and that comes across when we do see them, it's pretty like it's gruesome the way that they kill people, the way that like it was terrifying. Um, but because the film does go back and forth a little bit, it it didn't flesh out their their relatability. It didn't flesh out the divisiveness enough of them. Really trying to make them. They were kind of one dimensional. We're talking about one dimensional villains. That's kind of what they were, but they could have been more. I think them trying to play with it too didn't help. It only made it worse because we don't actually spend legitimate time. The film is not in their perspective at all. And when it is, it's very brief. It's for 2 seconds. It might be when they're killing somebody. That's it. The film never takes their perspective. That's the point. So it makes them even more one dimensional. But I understand it, but it didn't help overall. I like how the contrast of time past and time present is a key theme of the film, even with little moments like Manny being baffled by the new technology of the present, wiretaps or forensics or whatever. Tools of gangster hunters, not tools of ex-rangers and gunfighters who took down outlaw gangs, right? So I like that contrast. I think it only added the story, it aided the story overall, but I mean, it didn't. It didn't hurt it in any way. But I enjoyed the action in the film, but I thought there should have been more action in the film. Sometimes it got a little slow, right? Pacing wise, it got a little slow. And then the climax itself isn't super so it kind of tampered off at the end. The headline of this movie is The Hunt for Bonnie and Clyde. There should be more of an explosiveness to the film overall, to the tone of it, which I thought was kind of lacking from the first half overall, and then kind of picked up in the second half, but then tapered off at the end. So, yeah. I enjoyed watching Frank and Manny come into these modern day investigations and handle it their old school way and get the job done. That was, again, playing with that contrast. They show up, the new school cats, with their fancy forensics and tech and whatever, and they do it all with just basic investigation. And that was a good little scene. Underneath it all, the message, this idea of what makes someone bad or good and how that line is kind of thin, is perhaps why the movie was good. Because what really makes Frank and what he did much different from what Clyde is doing, right? Because that's kind of something they play with. Frank had to cross a line a lot in his career, and so what exactly makes somebody good or bad is a question of this overall, is a question of this film. But again, I think it doesn't work because of how little time we spend with actually relating to Clyde. If we could relate to Clyde, then that really would have came across better. Performance-wise, though, Kevin Costner, Woody Harrelson, they just make the movie better. Their performances are good. I like the character tweaks in the writing for our antagonist. Maybe it would have been great. I think Bonnie and Clyde, when we do get those moments to try and show the divisiveness, it's only when we see how they're perceived by other people, like Clyde's father, or like people who are fans, or people who support them, like the gas station guy, or whatever it is. That's it. That's when we get those moments of trying to relate to Bonnie and Clyde. And again, it doesn't work enough because we don't spend legitimate time with the characters. Just seeing the terrible things they've done expresses the truth of what they really were. So in the end, that was the point. But you could have done that while also trying to add depth to them as characters overall, I think. You could argue it. Maybe the way they did it was good, like the way to do it. I just thought maybe more of a presence. I think, though, they are a presence. Obviously, they're a presence in general without actually seeing them a lot. That's the point. Maybe. Yeah. So overall, I give it a 7.8 out of 10. It was good. fact that it wasn't a typical action-packed ride, um, and actually more of a well thought out, put together little story might actually be why it was good. You know, if it was just some action, blah blah blah, shoot 'em up thing, maybe it wouldn't have been as good. Um, what's more is, in truth, the defeat of Bonnie and Clyde also saved the Texas Rangers. I like that fact at the end of the film. Their reconstitution was possible because of Frank and Mary. Right? The Texas Rangers were not a thing at this point in the movie, and then because of their takedown of Bonnie and Clyde, the Texas Rangers were brought back. Again, true stories are always going to be good, at least for the most part, I think. As long as they're executed properly. Let's do our fun fact of the week. And like I said, it's about Unforgiven, so here it is. Just a great fucking masterful film all around. Is it Clint Eastwood's masterpiece too? I think maybe it could be. I'm sure people would argue $1 Million Baby or something, but I think it might be. Did you know that the 1992 masterwork Unforgiven, starring and directed by Clint Eastwood, was almost directed by Francis Ford Coppola before Eastwood came along and snagged it? The film has quite a history. The script was actually in the works since 1976. The writer, David Webb Peoples, who was an editor in the 70s and writing scripts on the side, had been shopping it around with other titles for years. Other titles like The William Money Killings and The Cut Whore Killings. And that's perhaps why it didn't get made for a while, because those titles didn't quite work. On top of that, when Eastwood did finally agree to make it, it was the mid-'80s, and Eastwood actually intentionally kept pushing the making of the film back so that he would be even older for the role. Finally, it was made in 1992, and according to Peoples, very little of what he wrote was changed for the final product we got to enjoy on screen. If you haven't watched that movie, definitely watch it. It is a fantastic classic of the 90s. Question of the week. Following up on last week, I asked, what is your favorite Pixar film? I had a hard time picking. I bet a lot of people did too. Here's what the internet said. WALL-E, dude. Probably because of how experimental that one was. Like I said last week, it was super experimental. So it makes sense to me, but I don't know that it's crazy to me that how many people picked that, actually. The rest of the list doesn't surprise me, though. I mean, Toy Story should be up there. Finding Nemo should be up there. So yeah, that's what it is. I don't know what it seems like such a hard. It would be like when I asked the Marvel question too. It was like that. Like I couldn't just pick. It's not easy to pick. I mean, I did pick, right? But it's hard to pick. This week, here's an interesting one. What is your favorite frequent acting collaboration? So a pair of actors who've teamed up multiple times in their careers. I think the most legendary one is obvious, and it's Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci. Because they've done it, they've collaborated 5 times, 4 times with Scorsese. Every time it's some wild ride in some way. It is fantastic. Dramatic, whatever it is. I think that's probably my favorite, but I would say for comedy, James Franco and Seth Rogen, they've collaborated 3 times, and every time I laugh my ass off, so that's probably number 2 there. Tougher question this week, but what is your favorite frequent collaboration of actors? And maybe I'm forgetting one that's so obvious, too. I don't know if you can include sequels. Like, what if there's one where it's sequels and stuff? Because, I mean, I don't know. No, we're not going to include, like, a series of films or a trilogy or anything like that. It's just separate films where the actors have teamed up. Movie quote of the week. keeping in theme. So here we go. You would never understand, Wayne. You and me, we're not even the same species. I used to be you, and then I evolved. From where you're standing, you're a man. From where I'm standing, you're an ape. You're not even an ape. You're a media person. Media is like the weather, only it's man-made weather. Murder? It's pure. You're the one made it impure. You're buying and selling fear. You say why? I say, why bother? Name the movie and check the episode for hints of what it could be from. But yeah, that is our episode this week. We're all done. I'm done. Real quick on Caught My Attention. The big thing. Drake keeps teasing us. Drake dropped a 3-track single, and it is fire. Obviously, it's very good, and it's just more teasing for the album that's coming out. When is it coming? But if you haven't listened, I mean, who the fuck are you? You under a rock somewhere? I don't know. But definitely go check it out. I'm your host, Ben Morganti. Follow me personally at DaBenji. Follow the show at Screen Preach. Check out my website at benmorgantistory.com. You can find the episode and other episodes and future episodes on a YouTube video version. You got to subscribe to BMS Studios on YouTube. You can listen on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. And of course, finally, please go ahead and support the show more fully by becoming a patron at patreon.com/preacher. And that's our episode this week. Thank you for listening or watching, whichever you prefer. And come back next week. We'll talk about something newer again. I'm really looking forward to watching the next Russo Brothers film, Cherry, with Tom Holland. So that might be what I talk about next. Definitely come back, and thanks for watching this week, guys.